Good morning, everybody. Just going to share the presentation. Um, so, thank you, Lisa. Yes, I have been doing this for quite a while. As I reminded myself last night when I went through my presentation again, I thought, gosh, um, time goes by quite quickly when you're busy and having fun. So. My name, as I say, is Andrew Capel. I actually now live near Aberystwyth. When I first started, well, I started my first car club back in 2007. We launched in Llanidloes, and it's now been what, 18 years? Gosh, 18 years. I mean, nearly coming up for the 18 years when we officially launched in April 2005. And so part of my presentation we'll cover that journey very briefly. But also, I like to say it's kind of as we were just chatting before you came online about how things develop, and sometimes projects you start off just take ages to get off the ground, they never get off the ground, or sometimes they just like explode into being a bit like the repair cafes seem to have really taken off throughout Powys and Wales. It's all I know in England as well, but that's a foreign country to me now. So basically, it's not about the cars, it's about people. And I think that's so key in a lot of projects to remember. You obviously have to have cars, otherwise you don't have a car club. But it's the people that are key to it all. So this slide is really just about so it's the actually some the main people that were involved in at the beginning of the Lanny Car Club, and the cars that we had over the years, from 2007 till about 2019 when we got our first EV. But a little bit of oops, see if this works. It's not playing ball with me. Yes, okay. But the background. So why start a car club in Llanidloes? Well, that's obviously where I lived. At the time, there were only three rural car clubs in existence in the whole of the UK. One of them was in Yorkshire, one of them was in Devon, and the third one was in Powys in Machynlleth. So that was really good because that was just over the mountain for me, and I was able to quite easily go and visit when they had a meeting. And one of the things that struck me about rural car clubs is it just couldn't work out how it was going to work. If you've got how do you make it work, especially in a rural setting where people have very often have their own cars. So why would they want to use our car? It's a question that took me a little while to come up with some answers. But it was a very valid question and still is. So in Mac, I learned two things. One was how it can work. That was obvious. They've been going by then. They've been going about 8 years when I first came across them in 2005. So obviously it works. And then the other thing was I could then see how to make it work even better. So, like building on what they had done, with my background in business, I knew how important it is to have any project to be financially, to become financially viable, as well as have structures in place, good admin systems, because my background is in software development, developing admin systems for businesses. So I had all that, and I thought, oh, I can bring this to this project to give it some real structure and a potential to last. So what happened is that we launched in 2007 as the Lanny Car Club. We didn't have any funding. Our first car was donated by one of our founding members, and then you saw that group of cars there. They kind of like grew over the next couple of years with members. As we got more members, we got more cars, cars died, as they do. We got our third car we ended up purchasing, and from there on in, we've always either purchased or leased our own cars because we were financially self-sufficient, which was obviously one of my boxes I wanted to. One of the things I wanted to achieve with the car club. And then in 2019, we actually got our first. Excuse me, I'm going to have a drink. Uh, Electric car, because in 2016 members had decided it was time, we had one. So it was down to me as a part-time paid coordinator to investigate. It only took me 3 years. But part of that was because the technology wasn't really ready. And about 2018, Renault brought out this Zoe, like the one top left, the blue one. It's second generation that had a range of 186. And that was a game changer because even though that's not on the ground, you might get 150 on a long journey. That still meant that somebody could book it out in the morning, drive it locally or a bit longer distance, come back, and then somebody in the afternoon could take it out without having to have downtime. Because you're talking, half an hour, which when you're used to a petrol or diesel is a long time. So, and that also worked for long distance, as my wife at the time was doing market research up in North Wales, and for her to be able to go up to North Wales and come back again and drive around, this made it feasible. So I don't know if you've heard of Llanidloes Energy Solutions. I don't think they exist anymore. I think they're part of, they're now merged with Zero Carbon Lanny, but they provided us with a grant of about £4,000, which was wonderful because that enabled us to get the car. It went down, went a long way to being able to afford it. And so just moving on at that time in Newtown, the organisation called Open Newtown, which some of you may be familiar with, they have that wonderful building there is now, but they got funding through the Arwine Leader Programme in Powys to develop 3 electric car clubs in Powys. They chose Newtown, Machynlleth and Welshpool to have an electric car. The electric car club in Machynlleth was to run alongside the existing car club. It didn't, it was a separate car club. And that was happening about the time, happening at the time we got our first EV. And so basically, I stayed out of that project because it wasn't my project. But what happened is towards the end of it, they asked us to take it on when the funding, the project funding came to an end, and they wanted an organisation to continue running it. So we took it on, and it's at that time we became known as Trip Two. And the simple reason for being called Trip Two is we couldn't be the Lanny Car Club in anywhere else apart from Llanidloes. So we needed more generic name. And we had each car club as in Trip to Machynlleth, Trip to Llanidloes, etc. So interestingly, also as that project as we became Trip 2, there was this organisation in South Wales who we became aware of, who also actually got some about £500,000, I think it was, from the National Lottery to fund setting up car clubs in South Wales. And about a year later, they asked us to take over the running of that car club. They had the money, but what they realised after a year, they didn't really have the expertise. There was actually a lot more to it than meets the eye. So they asked us to take that on, which we did. And then within weeks, I would say, it was obvious to us that we need everybody concerned that we only needed one organisation. And so what we ended up doing is merging the operations, and we decided to keep the name Tridani because that was tied to the funding that they had, and also within Welsh government circles that name was well known as we were in the process of applying for further funding through the Welsh Government, which we were successful in getting about a year ago. So Trydannu, I don't know how good your Welsh is, but it's an amalgamation of two words, Trydan and ni, which means our electricity. And the beauty of the name is it's Welsh, and obviously we're here in Wales, so that's great. But the roots of the Trydannu is that the first project they were created for was to install electric charge points in communities throughout Wales, and the idea of these charge points would then fund, or the profits from the charge points would fund community projects in those areas. Really nice idea. Unfortunately, it didn't come off, and they had to give up with that idea, and they then decided, the directors of that organisation, which is a community benefits society, by the way, they actually then they went into car clubs. It's a very short summary of the events, but yeah, so it's nice, kind of like having a Welsh name for the organisation as well. So what I'm going to say is this. So now with our Welsh Government funding, we basically, what I and the people in, I would say those people in Mac and also in Llanidloes, our ideas of how a car club works. I mean, let's face it, Mac has now been going since 1997, so that's 18 years. Llanidloes has been going, it's 18 years? No, well, am I adding up correctly? It's more than that. It's 28 years, Andrew. Yeah, 28 years. And Llanidloes has been going 18 years. So we've got some things right, that's for sure. So using that as a model for community car clubs, we've now got the money from Welsh Government to roll this out throughout Wales. And I'll say a bit more about how that can benefit you in a moment. But just want to look at some of the challenges that we faced. And behavior change. Now, I hear this quite a lot among Greens and people obviously trying to seek change. And yes, of course, I mean, behavior change is hard. And there's a good reason for that. If you think about, when you learn to drive a car or even ride a bicycle, to begin with, you're kind of like all over the place. I mean, I'm learning the ukulele at the moment. And if any of you play a musical instrument with strings, like getting the chords, I can do individual chords, just about, get a few of those. But when I have to switch between them, the song's finished by the time I've got to the fourth one. So, but once you get it, then it's in there. So the habits that we've developed over the years are very strong and very powerful and very useful, and make us function and make us be able to play music as opposed to just strumming strings. But so changing them is also going to be difficult for that very, very reason. However, it's very possible. And this is what I've come from my experience of running car clubs or developing car clubs. You need a system, and you need a system that has that desired change as part of it. You're not always going to know that until you put it into practice, by the way. But the point is then you need the system, or what you're offering people has to be enticing enough for them to join. And then basically the behavioral change comes as part of them using the system. And that, yes, I want to get rid of my second car or whatever, and therefore I'm willing to do a few things in order to get the benefits of having that. So rather than focusing on behavior change, focus on systems and the carrots for people to join in, and leave the sticks to government. The other thing is, it's a bit of a trap here. We know what is good for you. I hear this also, that people think that, they must join a car club, or people must do this, and you're like, yeah, well, that's not the point. What we found is, it's all very well saying we think there should be a car club in Newtown or in Welshpool, and we can go there, we can we can install a charge point and get a car there ready, and then say, come along, everybody. But they don't want it. Maybe they don't need it. So we actually won't go where we're not invited. So that's a key point, which also follows on from this one. I've heard people say this. I think this build it and people come. There are some projects that will work for, and it's probably some projects it's essential, but not ours. So we find the people first, and then we actually build it with them, or build the remaining bits. We've taken care of a lot of the work out of setting up a car club, so we're able to kind of like speed up the process somewhat. Because it did take me, I say, it took me 18 months of when I first looking at trying to work it out to get to a starting point. And when I got to that starting point, which I'll say a bit more about at the moment, it took me 6 months to set the car club up. So, we're hoping to save people a lot of time and effort, or not hoping, we do. And the final question, which is a good question. It's not my question. I heard it from somebody at an event I was attending. It was, why use the car club when I have my own? And in a rural area, most people will have access to a car. I mean, why would you live in a rural area and not have a car? Because obviously it makes life more difficult. We have public transport, but it's not like being in many cities where you can literally jump on a bus almost any time of day or evening and know you can get back at any time of day or evening. Or there's trams, or there are trains. So I'll answer that question because I now have it. People often come to the car club. They may keep their car, and that's fair enough. We don't sell this as a replace your cars, rely on us. But we do say as a second car, it works really well, especially if you need your car for work. Then obviously the car club just doesn't work for that, because it takes the car out for the day. It's also more expensive than actually having your own car, as people will realize very quickly. But for more casual or ad hoc use, as a replacement for a second car, it's ideal. But very often people will say, I don't want to get rid of my car, but my car's not that reliable, so I use your car for longer distance. Or people very often just actually, when their car dies, that's when they will change, because giving up a car is it seems like a real big step. I've done it myself. It felt like it was a big step. It took me a couple of days to recover. I felt rather like I'd lost a friend, even though I didn't realize it was a friend. And not quite a friend, but kind of like I felt a bit morose for a couple of days, and then it passed and I was fine. Never looked back. Quite happy not to have a car, but so there are reasons for people having a car. It just takes time for them to perhaps realize, or the opportunity to occur. For some people, they will jump in, but or it's there actually the other thing I was going to say is, with people who are afraid of giving up their car, I just say to them, the worst thing that happens is if you got rid of your second car and it doesn't work for you, you just go and buy another one. It's not like it's the end of the road. But we also get attached to our cars, and I certainly have felt that myself. So okay. So what have we learned? We learned that it's people that make it work. So we always um, find the people first. And if nobody wants it, then that's in that one. Large enough people who want it, then we move on. It teaches people to use a car less. So my own experience on this is that I'd been in the 2 years up until it took to launch the car club. I was recording the amount of mileage we did and how much our car cost, because we had a car, we had a shared a car my wife and I shared. And over the 2 year period, what our annual mileage was 21,000 between the two of us. So, not bad. That's just 10,500 each. It's nothing to be ashamed of, certainly. Um, and the cost of the car each year was about £4,000. In term, it had no depreciation. It was an old car. We scrapped it as soon as once the car club was up and running. I think I got 40 quid for it. And but a year on into the car club, I thought I'd work out how much it cost us, how many miles we'd done. And in that first year, we did 7,500 miles, which was quite shocking, actually. I didn't believe my figures. I had to go back and check them, and they were correct. And then, and the cost, we actually saved £2,000. So this is back in 2007, 2008, I suppose, a year later on. And what I've realized since is that we've never come up to that 21,000 since. There have been years when it's fluctuated. It's been a lot more. Maybe at the most I think we've ever done is 16,000 between us. But yeah, we've never, our mileage has dropped. We just use a car less. And how that manifests itself is that when you're paying for this car, when you book it, you pay for it. It's not like you own a car, because then you've already committed to, paid for the insurance, or you're paying for it monthly, but you're committed to that. You're committed to maintenance costs. You're committed to the tax. So all you think about is the petrol or the fuel you put in the car. So often people say, "Oh, it only costs me, a few quid to go wherever," and you go, "No, it doesn't. It probably costs you 45p a mile, at least." If you include it, but we don't think like that. But when you pay for the car, when you're going to book it and you pay for it, it's saying, well, how can I make the best of this journey? It's people don't necessarily think that consciously, but that's what happened to me. And you just think, well, okay, I'm going to the dentist today. Maybe I could, if I'd have booked it properly or thought about it, I could have taken a bus, but I didn't. So okay, what else can I do? Maybe I'll do some shopping on the way back, or I can perhaps visit a friend if I organise it. So you end up doing 2 or 3 journeys in one, or visits in one journey, and that obviously reduces the amount of mileage you have, and also the cost as well. And people share. We've had members see that somebody else is going somebody else is going in that direction, or even to the same town as they are, and they will then share the cost of the car. So that's really a good behavioral change. It makes budgeting easier as an individual. Ever since I had family with three boys, they're all grown up now, but when they were, when they were young, it was always with the car. I could never budget so that I had the money to pay for it. I was always paying for it on the credit card and then playing catch up and hoping that the next bill, a large bill for the car, wouldn't come in before this one was paid off. But ever since I've had got rid of that car, and we were using the car club cars. Yeah, at the end of the month we have a bill, or then we had a bill. Now we just pay as you go, but back then it was monthly bills, and you'd pay that bill, and that was it. There was plenty of months left at the end of the money, which was great, and nothing changed. You know what I mean? All I changed was the habit, using a car club rather than my own car. So that's quite striking. And also, sorry, with the budgeting, just to say, the other advantage is if you, with our system now, you can, like, you buy credits. So I could, at the beginning of the month, I might say, okay, what can I afford to spend on my car transport this month? Say £100. So spend that, put that money on my car club account, and then I can go and spend it. And if I'm being honest with myself, I could say, well, when that runs out, can I afford any more? And if I can't, then that's it. I have to find alternatives until the beginning of the month, and it's much easier to budget. And obviously I have the choice of saying, well, below the budget, need a car today. But you have much more freedom. And likewise, you have more freedom about other transport methods. Because when you have a car, it's well, if you've got a car sat out there and you could take the bus, but it's raining, or maybe you're a bit late, whatever, in a rush, it's so easy just to take the car, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the temptation's there, but also, as in the words of a young man who used to live about 3 miles away from where I lived in Llanidloes. He used to cycle into Llanidloes, many times a week, if not every day, and that's like 5 miles there, 5 miles back. It's it's not a bad route. There are a few hills, but he was super fit. And then he he passed his test, I don't know, at 18 or 19, and bought a car, and I never saw him on the bike. I wouldn't say again, maybe the odd time, and asked him, why doesn't he cycle anymore? He said, well, I bought this car and I paid for it, and I'm going to get the most use out of it. You make the most of it. And I thought that was really interesting. But that makes perfect sense. I mean, yes, why wouldn't you bought it, you make the most of it. It's otherwise it's yeah, it doesn't make sense in that respect. Forget, the environmental concerns or whatever is another matter, but that's human nature for you, and that's what we need to be working with. Okay, so moving on now to about more present where we are with the Tredunny Car Club. We're in, I get this right, 2468. So we've got 8 locations and we have 14 cars. Um, and we are, there's a 4 more on the cusp of launching in well, that's mainly in South Wales. Although Carnarvon is Carnarvon happening in the north. So that's great. All those cars are available to members. So just because you might live in Llanidloes or Machynlleth, if you were to say you could get a bus up to North Wales and then hire the car there rather than having to drive up there in one of our cars and have it for the time you're there. You can just tap in, you can go by public transport or get a lift, whatever, to a different location and hire the cars. And obviously, we're going to want to fill that map out a bit over the next few years, which is where you might come in, because what about your community? So we started, this is 3 of our founder members. That's me without the beard. And this is our first car. So we moved on a lot from that. We have much newer cars now, and they're all electric. But it's not about the car, it's about sharing. In actual fact, any project where you're sharing, or things like the repair cafes, they are all, climate change solutions. And they all involve people a lot, in as part of the project. So, yes, it was Bob on the right of that picture who lent us our first car. And so what comes next? Okay, so we have funding available. We can supply a group with a car. We can supply them with a dedicated charge point if there's a suitable location. And we have the admin system, which is the hidden gem, because that can take up a lot of work if you had to do it yourself. I know, I've done it. And also the booking system handles all that stuff that's necessary but not necessarily fun to do. And certainly there's no need to reinvent the wheel. That's another pun. Never mind. Okay. So from you, what we need is, from your community, we want 15 expressions of interest. So people literally can just go to tredunny.org. I think you click on the join button, and then there's another button saying, I want one in my area, or something like that. So basically, people can register their interest with us, and when we get to that magic number of 15, then we get back in touch with those people, and we actually meet in person. So the idea is that we come to your location and we meet with you and we learn what the challenges are, and we explain what we have to offer to everybody and how it's going to work. But the three key things that we need to know about is somewhere to park, somewhere to charge, and we also need to know what level of involvement. We like to have like member coordinators, basically members who are willing to help run the car club locally. And running it typically just means doing the monthly checks on cars and also doing member inductions or familiarizations, as we also call them. And we do pay people. So people we give them credits towards their car club usage, because it's important that people who are, if you like, running it, like me, also use it, because we are our own customers as well. And if you're giving somebody an induction, um, we train you. Don't get me wrong. We're definitely not going to just let you get on with it. We will handhold you as much as you need to, so you're confident to do it. And it's got to be enjoying. You've got to enjoy talking to people. I mean, my wife loves doing these inductions, and quite a lot of the other coordinators do too. As in that's the bit they really like doing. So you basically could help to pay towards your car club usage. Um, so that is what the meeting is about. It's actually at that stage, it's how do we make this happen? And then what we ask people to do then, having registered interest, is actually to sign up to fill out the membership form. That's also a key event, because I've had groups where we've gone to them, given them talks, and then nobody's made that sign up. They go, okay, you obviously thought it was a good idea. That's fine. We move on. But if people do sign up, enough people sign up, then we're then talking about what type of car and where to park it, where to charge it. So it's about making it happen as a partnership. Uh, you have the local knowledge, you have the desire, and we have the facilities to help you make that happen. So I kind of find that I must admit that aspect's my favourite bit of the whole thing. It's still, after all these years, go to a meeting with a group of people like I did in Swansea and San Stefan last weekend, and it's great. I still come away with a bit of a buzz and excitement to think there's these car clubs more car clubs are happening. So our tariff is uniform throughout any car. So whatever wherever car you book, this is what you're paying. So there's an hourly cost, which is capped at £42, which is equivalent to 14 hours. So if you have it for those hours between 14 and 24, there's no more cost per hour. The cost per mile is effectively to pay for the charging when you bring it back. Because unlike a petrol car, where you can just nip into a garage, fill up, and do it that way, it takes a bit longer to charge. So what we ask people to do is just come back, plug it into the charge point. There's a swipe card, so they can swipe, and the charging is paid for. We foot the bill for that charging, and we get it back through the cost per mile, which is only limited to 150 miles. And the reason for that is all our cars have a range of at least 150 miles. So if you're going any further than that, you tend to be going longer distance, and you'll have to plug into a public charge point and pay for it. So you just pay for your mileage, pay for your electric, a bit like if you book a hire car, you fill up with petrol or diesel when you're away, you pay for that. And then there's just a booking fee of £2.50 for each booking you make. So quick financial comparison. Just as a second car, my rule of thumb here, because these figures have varied. They've changed since I last did them. Um, but basically, if you're using a car club car, sorry, using your car 3 days a week, um, or less, then it's probably financially, makes sense to use a car club car. But that's only one aspect. It's got to work for you in terms of convenience, but also the key thing here is that just because you think you do this amount of mileage, as I've said, with your car, join the car club, you'll end up doing less. I mean, I've seen that happen with so many people where, they start to use the car club less after a period of time because they realize, they can, when they start to get more organized in their life, or, it's great. So, just now quickly, so checking the time actually, just oh crumbs. Right, okay, move on. Right, so we have an app. We also have the same, you don't have to use an app, which is a smartphone, basically, but you can use the website to book. Quite a simple app. Just choosing a car, you can see your reservations, and you can also see, buy credits. And you buy credits in bundles, which is I talked about earlier on, 15, 30, 60, or £100. And you don't get charged for buying the credit, the bundle. So you buy 30, and if it's not enough later, you need to spend some more later on, then you just buy another one, and it would just appear as an entry on your your credit card or your debit card uh, account. And then you can see in the app or on the website, you can see the breakdown of how much your booking cost you. And okay, finally, for those that don't have a smartphone or don't want to have another app on your smartphone, we have swipe cards. So basically, you make your booking online. That's all good. When you come to the car, there's a card reader behind the windscreen, and you can just tap the card to start your booking and unlock the car. And then at the end of your journey, you will then lock the car by tapping it once, and then you tap it again in quick succession to, excuse me, end your booking. So, with all this technology, it's good to have something that doesn't just rely on smartphones, because not everybody has one, not everybody wants one. Okay, so that's all from me.